Hello, everybody, and welcome to our after church tea time. I am Granville, and I am joined by Lara and Eve. Eve, please pronounce your name for me so I don't say it wrong.
Eve is correct, yes.
Perfect. See,
Yes.
we're learning.
Yeah,
Cool. So thank you guys for joining me for after church tea time. Thank you to everybody that's joining us today. We did start a few minutes earlier because the sermon ended slightly earlier. So we will continue, and we also invite all of you to please share your feelings and thoughts around our sermon today from Kanisha. Also, any experiences that you believe everybody will benefit from in terms of their journey. So I feel like for me this was a greatly timed sermon for one of the reason being that we do need the reminder, and I feel like I needed the reminder. I needed the reminder that actually God does have a promise for me, and that I need to remember to take a step back and sit with the feeling of where I don't believe that promise is coming through. And also to connect again truly to what are the desires in my heart, because I feel like sometimes we have this idea that we want something, but we're not very clear about it. We just know we want something, right? We want movement. But I feel like it's important, and it's definitely important for me to just, again, take the step back. So I think it was a very well-timed sermon to just say, take stock. Take stock as you start off your year and just sit with it and understand where you're at and understand how you're feeling and work the process again as you start to uncover more of those answers.
Yep, I liked Kanisha's sermon as well. I always love Kanisha's sermons. They're always very powerful. And I feel like what stood out for me was like this kind of deepening the relationship with God. Because as she mentioned, she was not seeing like the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And then there's just the trust and the faith we can keep and have. And for example, I love that you shared like we have this community, and even when you maybe not like see that this will come to fruition, or you can see like any kind of result in your external reality or something like that, there are like examples, like we have a guru, we have like community members who are walking the path with us and who share harmonious union with us. And I feel this was also for me extremely valuable, keeping the faith through like the shared experience we have as a community. Yeah, I like this a lot.
it's when you talk or to share about faith, it's really important to have this faith because there will be times on your ascension journey where you don't see anything from the desire you shared within you, what you're having, and you're just having this dream within yourself. I want to be with my twin flame, for example, but from where you start to until you have the result, there is a long journey, but really to recognize that this is the truth that you can have is you need a tremendous amount of faith because you're just walking the path and you don't see it, and it's always like for me faith and like also having power in believing in faith but also believing in yourself goes hand in hand, that you actually can come to the destination where you want to be, because like I believe oftentimes we are certain of what we want, but we don't really believe in our own power that we can have it. So then we settle for less instead of going like all in and having the faith and going until we are there. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it needs like the promise towards yourself in a way that God can give you what he really desires. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you. I'd also just want to welcome Ryan. We did start a little bit earlier, Ryan. So
Yeah, no
apologies.
problem.
If it looked like you joined late, it was just that we started a little bit earlier because the sermon had ended earlier.
Yeah, that's totally cool. I'm glad that I could still make it. We're all good.
Awesome. Cool beans. Yeah, so I feel like both of you have shared something quite important, is that it, you actually do know the desire, right? But you never quite have the full belief, or we learn to have the full belief, because there is a gap in believing that we can have it. And I feel like that's kind of been a big piece of my journey, because I feel like I grew up in a family that was very much in a relationship with struggle. And so as a child, you see this happening and you start to believe that that's what life is about. And as we learn and we start to heal through the places that we struggle, as we learn in our twin flame journey and our ascension journey, and through the teachings of union, we start to realize where those are actually limiting beliefs, that they are probably keeping us in a space of feeling small or accepting the smallness of the things that we see, or believing that we don't deserve the good life or the better life or the healthier life. And it, for me, it even plays out in relationships. So, we settle for the relationship that's least painful, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best relationship for you. And I feel like that learning only comes because we start to heal. Because if you don't know any better, that's what you will do. But the minute you start to know better, then you desire better. And the desire for me came through healing the place where I didn't know better.
Hmm. Yeah, I love what you're sharing, and like I'm kind of having this just deep resonance in how our thoughts are what we thought reality was, right? And the teaching is all about purifying the mind of the delusion that we are our thoughts, and even that we are our feelings. We're just having an experience of these feelings, and it's important to feel them. It's important to allow those thoughts as well to come up, but to not wrap ourselves up in that idea that we are not this eternal being who is present in the truth that we are only love, right? And I really love even what Drake shared as well before the sermon, about being a unionist and what it really means to the earth right now and what we're all doing. And yeah, I think just being grateful for that, and also trusting that this is the right path, trusting that the work has been laid out for us through our gurus, through the teachings of union, and being able to, yeah, just kind of focus on the work of the day. You become yourself, like Kanisha shared, was beautiful. It just happens. It's not even something that you have to like intensely figure out. And I think that the twin flame journey before becoming a unionist felt like that, and the journey of life felt like that. And it's really nice to just have what we have, and that we're all, living in our own worlds, but our worlds do complement each other and support one another in community, even if we don't, even if it goes unsaid, right? And there's a lot that we're doing, and I think that, yeah, I feel that it's nice to see everybody coming together through God, right? And we don't know sometimes, or we don't think about or reflect on how deep that is, but God does, and God shows us how deep that is. And just to hear each other speak, and you know to see others' journeys unfold, it really helps us to see, like, wow, that's my desire, or wow, look what they've accomplished, and I see that a lot with Eve and Lara, and I really, love your union, and it helps me a lot in mine. Yeah, and yeah, I think I guess just to kind of complete this, it's just about knowing that it will come true, your dream. And now we have the work to make dreams come true, right? The work is a dream come true, and it's like the tool to make dreams come true very fast. And Yeah, I do feel that in my life. And before this call, I really felt like I was just working through like anxiousness and just like being seen and being myself and like, oh my God, I haven't seen these people and like, and then you like, it's just so silly because we're all here in presence, right? And like, yeah, that's all just an illusion and that's ego. And yeah, it feels good to step into these calls where we all connect always. And yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you for sharing, Ryan. It was
Mhm.
like for me, it was like really touching when you said this. Like really, I can cry.
Aw.
Yeah, because I recently like reflected on ourselves or how far we have come as a union, and it was not always easy, and we had like a lot of challenges, and like not Shaleia, like Kanisha shared in the sermon, like you have to choose it. You have to make the choice. Even Drake said it in the beginning. It is like you can't have it if you do not choose it, and you have to choose it like every day. Like it is a deep commitment. And Kanisha also shared this, like she once like had really this realization, I want to commit to myself like completely, not only for my union, but for myself and just my relationship with God. And I feel like this is like such an important piece to really be aware of your own choice, because if you do not choose it, you can't have it. Like God can't give you. You have to make the choice. Like really be aware of that. You can't have your dreams come true if you do not choose your dreams to make them come true. And I had like once Jeff said to me personally, this comes to my mind now, like you really have to be aware you have to create it for yourself. Like you have to put in the work, so to speak. Like you co-create with God, and Kanisha shared this as well. Like,
Yeah, and that really everyone has their own unique relationship to God and their own challenge to move through. Even if you're twin flames, like you have the same experience in life, my experience or my relationship with God is completely different than the relationship Laura has. Even the difference between probably the relationship what the masculine has with God and the feminine has with God is probably already different. And even there in the relationship with God, I had personally moved through some challenge about really trusting that the gifts God has for me are real, that like God does love me, that I'm a child of God. I had at the beginning of my journey really the struggle to have this faith that God wants me and loves me. And this is like as I moved through this, I was really like able to like relax into my life because I knew I have this relationship with God, and this was always in my life the missing piece I was searching for, having a relationship with my Creator. And as I've moved really through this and come within myself the conclusion that I can have it all, and for especially the relationship with God, I felt deep relief and I was able to relax into myself for the first time. Before I was always searching for something and I was looking outside for nice things, something always on the outside. But when I felt, okay, I kind of have it within myself and it's just God. And then I get the thing in the outside I desire within myself. Like Ron shared, it's a feeling experience. This feeling experience, when you get it through the relationship with God, then it actually starts to feel good because having the relationship with your twin flame when you're not with God, I had this experience. It feels terrible when you don't have the relationship with God at the core, but you have it with your twin flame. The relationship doesn't work.
it doesn't work.
God is the foundation of everything,
Everything.
and yeah.
I mean, everything is meaningless without him. Yes. Mm.
I love that you guys shared that because I feel like that was something that was quite profound in Kanisha's sermon, in that your union and your life can't really grow if it's not on the foundation of unconditional love. And I feel like that's kind of been the journey, right? And I actually appreciated where she said I had to actually be honest with myself and ask myself if I'm truly if there's truly unconditional love in those spaces. because I feel like sometimes we have this idea. And when we really unpack it, we just find that it's lacking in its fulfillment of what unconditional love would be or feel like. And, it always reminds me of something that was always shared. And I used to be a Sunday school teacher, so it was very interesting for me because, God, a lot of the time where the message was about love, it was like, and I mean, I was very young at the time, and I'm like, did I truly understand what I was sharing with the people in my class at the time? And now I'm going back and I'm just kind of seeing newer truths and cleaner truths. And I feel like sometimes, when Jeff and Shaleia share at the beginning of Twin Flame Ascension School in some of the classes, that the foundation that you build is not just a normal foundation. You are literally putting that massive palace on top of that foundation, and it can't crumble. And so you kind of have to literally almost unpack the entire thing and relook at it to see where there's no real integrity to the foundation, right? It's not a solid foundation. So I feel like that's been my journey in Twin Flames universe, and just with people, is just to unpack what those relationships are built on. And I find that a lot of the time, because I find the gaps in that foundation, the relationships start to fizzle out, or they change form because they're not based on unconditional love. There's always a feeling of it being some or other transactional process. And we all know that that's not what unconditional love is about. Like love until you can't love anymore, but don't expect that it's going to be returned in the same way, shape, or form. And I think the expectation is what I've had to learn to release the expectation that something's going to come back to me in the form that I shared it in. And it's also to Eve's point around expecting something on the outside. There was always that expectation of fulfillment coming from the outside. And we know that it's fleeting. We also know that it doesn't actually bring true joy, and it doesn't actually contribute to true peace. And I feel like it's been definitely a learning, and it may not have felt pretty all the time, but I appreciate the learning because I know better. I feel better about it. And it gives me something greater to build a foundation on.
Yeah, that totally stood out to me too, just about the looking outside, because it's like it's really intense, right? And it takes all of your energy away because you're just placing it into nothing. And yeah, when you've shared about relaxing, like that is so important, is to be relaxed, because then you can actually see clearly. It's like you're blinding yourself when you're searching outside of yourself, just to try to take yourself out of that bad feeling, but it doesn't leave. It never leaves, and it can create a storm of bad things, because that's the point of it. There is no point other than to suffer. And it's almost, and a lot of what Kenesha shared too is like it's your responsibility to see where you are doing these things, right? Even if you're unconscious of it, that's why we feel our feelings, because it helps us to find those places that are sneaky, and they're trying to go into these places that don't really equate to reality. And yeah, it's really good healing, and it really like kind of woke me up when you shared that, Eve, about relaxing, because that's kind of been my focus lately big time, is just like relax. Like the things that you're creating, if they're not relaxed, they're not even real. If they're not peaceful, they're not loving, they're not real. And Yeah. I've definitely been somebody who has created a lot of problems based on obsessing over thoughts and obsessing over ideas instead of loving myself into the next place, and not concerning myself with, okay, maybe I don't like this thing about what's currently happening in my reality, but if I just focus on that and I remain stuck in that container, I can't open up to all of this, whatever's next, and like really fly high into that next, you know, level, or that next layer that feels really good and is what I actually did want. So that's been my healing too, is allowing expansion through not focusing on creating a solution, but just, well, creating a solution, but not looking for it, but just creating it through presence and allowing the solution to show me what it is, because I don't know what it is fully. God does. And Drake talked about that a bit too. So yeah, this was a really good sermon and great conversation. Yeah.
I think you touched on something that stood out to me quite a bit as well in the relationship with God. That, I was always almost under this mistaken impression that God's gonna do it. So, you almost resign to the fact that, well, do I really need to do something here? And so I appreciated that Kanisha also surfaced it, that, you have to actually meet God. You have to meet God in the journey. And I think it's something that Jeff and Shaleia have shared countless times with us, is that you have to take the next step that presents itself. And, like, I almost feel like sometimes I had this perception of God as this magician with a wand that's just gonna do stuff. And then, you kind of get disappointed, because actually God's also expecting movement from you. And so when you don't put in the movement, you start to distrust that God is there. And I think that was the thing that I had to unlearn, is that God is not saying, oh, well, it's my will, so you don't have power in this space. God is saying, it align with my will, but exercise your power. I've given you power. And I feel like that was something that always has stood out for me in one of the Bible verses that I've always come across countless times, is Jeremiah 29:11, where God says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and give you a life. And so, that's not saying I'm going to do it all by myself and you don't have to be involved. Like, it's saying, I have plans for you, but you have to align with me. You have to choose it, but then you also have to act. And I feel like it's important for us to remember, and also to remind everybody, that anytime we've seen anybody get results on their journey is because they've done the work, they've taken the steps, they've put in the effort. And even for ourselves, we have seen countless times where we take the step and the result is far more profound than what we thought it would be. But it might not have been that way if we hadn't taken the step. So it's just an encouragement that actually we do have power, and we can stand in our power, and we can exercise our power.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, I'm going to share about that you get your next step. Like, you get only one next step for, like, no matter what you want to achieve, you just get one step from God, and you need to walk the next step, because God won't give you like 10 steps at a time, maybe 10 different steps, but in one thing you want to have, He's just giving you one next step. And when you're getting the whole picture, from my experience, if I would get the whole picture, what God wants from me, I would say no. Because then I would say, from my mind, no, that's too challenging. I don't want this challenge. I want to relax and sit on the couch and watch a TV show or whatever. But when you're just getting a next step, and the next step feels in some way choose it, then you're going for the next step and you have to work the process. And that's with our successes we had every time when I had known before what are we have to
What will
work
come,
through,
yeah.
but everything will come up. I don't know if I would say yes to it because sometimes it gets intense and challenging if you call in the big thing you want to have from God, exactly how you shared. God is giving you a big piece of work to do that you get the big thing. So it's really this. I did this on my journey a lot, like also complain at God that I had this belief in myself, and I believe that's just coming from what my parents taught me about God, that God is something outside. Then you're always complaining at God outside of yourself, and you're waiting on God that He is giving you the thing or He's fixing your life because you get taught God is not within yourself. And then you need to work on that actually you can have the relationship within yourself, and then it shifts because you do not give the power outside of yourself and building a relationship within.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it needs really a great deal of obedience to God's will. Like you choose to align with God's will, then be obedient, like to God's will. Otherwise, you will not have like the good experience, because we have to be aware that we create with our mind. And if we like choose something, like for example, harmonious twin flame union, and then we do not want to receive any trigger, for example, like we can't have like what we called in. So it's really like we need this kind of obedience towards God, and I feel obedience is what makes us really free and gives us peace, and it's really a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love everything you're sharing, and I think that I guess my piece in that is just how overwhelming, it can feel with your twin flame if you're not seeing these things that you're sharing about each step, because you're going to have, 99 problems, right? You're going to have all these problems that come up between you two. And then it's almost like you blame them instead of taking on God as, the source and not your twin flame, right? And so as you take on God, you realize that these are just things within yourself that are reflecting in, the person that you're one with. And instead of, blaming your twin flame or going down this irrational place of like, oh my God, it's too much, God, it's too much. Like, why are you doing this to me? Why is this so hard? Why is she doing this? Why is he doing this? Just relax, because that's the whole energy of looking outside of yourself for the answer. And the first step is always to feel your feelings in those moments and to find where you can relax, because that big problem, that big block, that big separation thing that's, right in front of you, that's like making you feel so defeated, is actually the gold that is allowing you to receive everything you've ever wanted with them. And yeah, it's really like it is about being obedient to that and letting your guard down and feeling like you need to protect yourself, knowing that God is your protection, love is your protection, and not just saying these things that are nice, but like really experiencing what that feels like to move through the resistance there to being obedient to God and respectful towards God and yourself. And that is respect towards your twin flame. Um, and you may feel like your twin flame doesn't see you clearly, or they're not doing something that you want, but you're never going to get them to change without going to God. And it's you that needs to change, to just go deeper there. So yeah, that's what I got.
And I think what you guys have shared as well is just a nice precursor to the part that Kanisha spoke to quite early in the sermon, in that sense of that feeling of wanting to give up. And so, I feel like when you see too much of the picture in front of you, because it feels so big, and it's like, do I even have the energy for this? There might be a feeling of wanting to give up, or even where you feel that you're not quite seeing the results that you're wanting to see as quickly as you're wanting to see them. There's also the feeling, oh, well, why am I even doing this? And I think that it's important for us to just maybe also encourage everybody to say, it often happens, and I've seen it countless times with myself, even just in business. The minute you start to feel like, okay, this is the last straw, this is not where, it's just that next step that shifts things and brings more light and brings more energy into the picture. And it's literally about moving through the feeling of wanting to give up. And it's okay to honor your feeling. It's okay to say, hey, this is how I feel in this space. It's maybe not okay to take up residence there, but it's okay to feel your feelings and to heal through that space, right? And I feel like that's part of why we put ourselves under pressure, because we are grown up not to give up. We're grown up to push and push and push, but the push sometimes doesn't feel good. And so the only way to push through it is to love yourself in that space, which is literally the biggest thing that we teach through Twin Flames Universe and I've learned through the teachings of Jeff and Shaleia. And I feel like it's important for us just to encourage people where you do feel like giving up. It's never as bad as what your mind is telling you it is. Because our mind, our minds are very beautiful. Like, they can talk us into anything and they can talk us out of anything. So it's important for us to honor the feeling and love ourselves in that space, because yes, we can convince ourselves in either way anytime, and we are that powerful.
Yeah, I love what you're sharing there, and I think it's just important to know, like, the more we allow God to be the one in command, we realize that it becomes so natural, right? That our mind becomes filled with these creative, beautiful energies that are just expressing through us, and that negativity, that old world that we're leaving, it just falls away, and we have that beauty, and we step more and more into our perfection just naturally. We are perfect, right? And that's what Jeff always shares in TFAS and these classes, is that we are perfect, as we are. And so it's like, at the core, you realize you really claim these things at the core of your being, so that everything else can get uprooted out of your essence, and you create a whole new essence that is beautiful, right? And yeah, that takes a lot of effort, work, and grit, and it's not always easy, but the more that you choose it, the more that it shows and reveals itself in your life, and those things do leave. So you do have the power to cancel out everything that you once believed about yourself to be true, that held you from who you truly are.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm just checking in with everybody. I'm feeling pretty much complete with the conversation today. How are you all feeling? Good. Perfect. Thank you so much for the conversation today. Thank you for all the insights that you've shared. Thank you to everybody that's been with us through our after church tea time. We'd also like to encourage you to please like, subscribe to our Church of Union YouTube channel, where you will find all our previous content. And also, if you appreciated the conversation and the sermon from Kanisha today, please also consider tithing to the Church of Union as we continue to spread the message and the teachings of union. And again, we'd like to just invite you to also like this video, so that we can also see that our content is reaching you. So thank you, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon for another After Church Tea Time.
See you guys. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.